Grace to you and peace in the name of the triune God, Trinity of love, who made us, who saves us, and who keeps us, who calls us into an earth-honoring faith and life, and in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen. Blessed Eco Fair, Art Fair, and Solar Panel Dedication Weekend. Thank you to all of you who shared in helping Good Shepherd open our arms of eco-love and neighbor love yesterday. The ground of such celebrating and connecting and reaching out and spending our time and deepening our care for God's creation is the very ground we are gathered on. The very ground we are gathered on, whether we gather outside or inside. So in gratitude for this ground, God's ground, I want to invite you into a guided meditation of land encounter, which was shared with some of us by Joey Ager, who's on the ELCA staff of our part of the Pacific Northwest Lutheran District that we call a synod. First, I invite you to put both of your feet on the ground and to take some deep breaths, to feel your rootedness in this place, resting your feet on God's good earth. Now allow yourself to deeply experience the scene here today, simply as it is. Notice this place, this gathering, the land that we are on, and you might even imagine that we are sitting outside under the trees. Now, if you choose, I invite you to close your eyes as our imaginations take flight. I invite you to move back in time, a decade or two, or even to the founding of Good Shepherd in 1957. Imagine this land, this space, this place in those years. Now, allow yourself to move even further back, before the church was here, perhaps a few centuries or even more. Who was here? Were there animals or trees here? Now allow yourself to return to the present and to keep going forward in time. A decade or two, or 100 years or more into the future. What do you notice? What is experienced in this place by those who are here? Now, gently zoom out, imagining that you have a bird's eye view of this place and this area. Offer a wordless prayer of gratitude for the peoples and creatures that occupy this place now, and for those who have occupied it in the past, and for those who will occupy it in the future. Now zoom out farther so that you keep all of Olympia and Thurston County and the South Sound in your mind's eye. Offer a wordless prayer of gratitude for the peoples and creatures that occupy this place now, and for those who have occupied it in the past, and for those who will occupy it in the future. Sense your kinship with the peoples and creatures of this place, and for all of our partners in this place, partners in ministry, in care of God's creation, in eco-love and neighbor love. Now gently return to the earth, to the place where you are, and return your attention to those gathered with you here in prayer. And now I invite you to consider this. Did anything arise for you during this meditation? Were there any shifts or new perspectives around your kinship with the land? I invite you to reflect quietly. And now I invite you to share a few words about this with someone near you for a minute. What a gift it is to reflect on God's earth in this way, to reflect back and forward in time, from above in space, from the depths of our gratitude to God. It is indeed holy ground that we share. And more than that, we are kin with all who have shared and will share this land. My ancestral island is in far northern Norway, a beautiful place surrounded by water and mountains, and I have had the gift of repeatedly spending time there with loved ones. I learned along the way that there was a movie made on the island a few decades ago, and its name, Ponorsk, has held this mystical sense of kinship with God's earth and peoples and creatures. The title was Søsken på Guds jord, Siblings on God's Earth. This land that holds Good Shepherd, and that yesterday held neighbors and friends, siblings on God's earth, as we together talked and learned and shared our love for God's creation, this land is filled with love and kinship. And those solar panels that are now above us point us beyond each other to the sun and to the future. Those solar panels, so visible to us, are a clear and meaningful reminder that the planet has changed and now we must change with it. Those solar panels point us to the sun and far beyond. Is it the sun or the night sky that most often prompts you to reflect on the fact that there are at least 50 to 100 billion galaxies in the universe, each swimming with billions of stars and who knows how many planets? Or perhaps it's too much for you to even ponder briefly, so you don't. It's imponderable. It feels limitless. It's more mystery than we can imagine. John's gospel begins in mystery. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things came into being through God, and without God, not one thing came into being. And then at the end of John's gospel, we hear this. There are so many other things Jesus did. If they were all written down, each of them, one by one, I can't imagine a world big enough to hold such a library of books. If the galaxies seem like too much to consider, there's Jesus and all that he did. Limitless. Wow. Really? We are never going to know everything. The poet and writer Wendell Berry put it this way: the gospel and the privilege that we are invited to live our way into deeper understanding should, quote, make us wary of any attempt to reduce faith to a rigmarole, as he puts it, of judgments and explanations. Reductive religion is just as objectionable as reductive science, and for the same reason. Reality is large and our minds are small, end quote. It's bigger than us, all of it. All of it is about the mysteries of God's ways among us. Gus Speth, environmental advocate, United Nations Sustainable Development leader, and former Yale professor, has famously said, I used to think that the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that 30 years of good science could address these problems. I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy, and to deal with these, we need a cultural and spiritual transformation, and we scientists don't know how to do that, end quote. Spiritual transformation. That's one of the things that churches are for. I think that the future will continue to need churches. For the sake of the earth, for the sake of mystery that overwhelms and amazes us as we ask for God's help and each other's help in dealing with our selfishness, greed, and apathy, we need each other as we continue to learn how to be siblings on God's earth. An openness of soul is essential for our days on God's earth. Openness of soul, which is so well imaged as two open hands, the hands we offer to the risen Christ when we come to the communion meal given to Christ's body, the church. Hands of openness, not control. Hands that are loved by their Creator and sustained by food for the journey. Meals of Holy Communion, God's sacraments of holy presence, not only at this table, but in every tree and flower, as Martin Luther said. As we share in today's holy meal of communion, remember that it is our openness of soul that we invite one another to bring, even as we use our hands to open a little cup, as we do this summer. And even when we don't feel so open, Christ has promised to be present with us, with forgiveness, with love, with wisdom, with gifts of transformation. lastly, let us consider theologian Reinhold Niebuhr's wisdom as we consider our care for God's earth and as we consider all that there is to do now in the face of our earth's urgent travails and in these days of climate emergency continuing day after day. Niebuhr wrote, "Nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in our lifetime. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. Nothing that is true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we must be saved by faith. Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we are saved by love. No virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friend or foe as it is from our standpoint. Therefore, we must be saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness." Amen.